Now, this is a very important module that you really pay attention and work through. Arnold Shields is one of the top e-com accountants. He's from Australia, but not only is he an accountant that understands this business, he's also an Amazon seller. And he's going to be walking you through a spreadsheet and showing you some things on cash flow that are super critically important that you really need to understand. So please download the spreadsheet that he's providing and follow along with as he's explaining it. This is going to really help you out in your business. Arnold, off to you.
Today I'm going to talk about cash flow, one of the most important aspects of an Amazon business. Not the most important, there's obviously a lot of things, but it's one of the essential things you need to understand, because understanding cash flow will determine whether you go from just starting to building a multi-million-dollar business, or even getting to the next stage. So understanding how cash flow works in your business is vitally important. So first, before we get into talking about cash flow, I'd just like to explain a bit about me. So my name's Arnie Shields. I'm a chartered accountant, which is like a CPA, and I've been in business over 25 years running a chartered accounting practice. We sell on Amazon. We've got over 1,000 Amazon clients, ranging from people just starting to multi-million-dollar sellers. Plus, we sell on Amazon ourselves. We originally just started Amazon just so we could understand what our clients were going through and really just understand the data that was coming from Seller Central. Since then, we've built this into our own seven-figure business. We're selling in US, Australia, UK, Germany, all around the world. It's a lot of fun, and part of that fun is because it doesn't cause us a lot of stress because we understand the cash flow components of it. I've been a chartered accountant for over 25 years. I've examined thousands of different businesses, and there is no other business model like the Amazon private label business model. There is no other business that I can found that's able to grow from an initial small investment of $20,000, running it part-time and turning it into a multi-million-dollar investment in 4 to 5 years. You can do this organically. It doesn't require huge bank loans. It doesn't require VC funding. It's just profitable from day one, and you can turn it into this incredible business. The other thing about Amazon is it's got such low fixed costs. It doesn't require a huge amount of money to run it. I mean, in terms of, you don't need an office, you don't need a warehouse, you just need a laptop, really. Some really simple computer requirements, a couple of tools like Helium 10, and you're right to go. So it ends up being this business that it can grow much faster with far less cash flow requirements than any other business. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, it's too late to be in Amazon. You should have been here years ago. The Chinese are coming in and flooding the market with all these low price goods. What I'm about to show you today is that actually doesn't matter. And I'm going to give you show you how the cash flow model for a lot of these people who are selling on Amazon is structurally deficient. They're going to have problems with their Amazon business. It doesn't matter kind of how much money you've got put into it, they're still going to have problems because they end up selling at too low a rate and they don't consider the cash flow requirements of their decisions. So that's what we're going to work on today, is those cash flow requirements. We've built a tool to be able to show you how to use that, and we're going to go through that shortly. But this understanding cash flow is going to put you way in advance of every other business Amazon seller out there, because they just don't understand how it works. They're always going to be in a position where they're always trying to find more money. They're always going to be going out of stock because they've structured their business that's always going to be cash flow deficient. The reason why most Amazon sellers fail, and in terms of fail, they don't actually go out in a blaze of glory, they kind of just fade away. And the reason they fail is because of cash flow. They just can't keep their product in stock. Their cash flow means that they can't afford to make that next order. And when you run out of stock, it causes a couple of other problems. One is your sales stop, then your cash flow stops, and then it becomes more and more difficult to save up that money to then buy more stock. And when you have to restart your product again, it means you've got to pump more money into advertising, which is further reducing your profits. So the reason Amazon businesses fail as such, or fade away, is because of cash flow. Cash flow is the number one reason why across the world why businesses fail, and Amazon is no different. But in an Amazon business, it's kind of much simpler because you really only got one cost, which is stock. And just keeping that product in stock is vitally important, and that's why cash flow is so important. So there are three main factors that influence the cash flow in your business. Now, the number one is your gross profit rate. So your gross profit is your sales less your inventory costs, less your freight costs, less your FBA costs, and less your Amazon seller commission. So that's generally what we put into cost of goods sold. And the gross profit is your sales minus the cost of goods sold. Gross profit rate is your gross profit divided by your sales. So we want that to be over 30%. So a higher gross profit rate means that the business can generate more cash and it can grow faster. So a higher gross profit means more cash and you can grow faster. A lower gross profit means that it generates less cash and you have to grow slower. The second factor that influences your cash flow is the rate of growth. A business that is growing really quickly will require more cash. A business that grows slower will require less cash. The third factor is your inventory cycle, how quickly you can turn that inventory around. So if you're buying stock from a US manufacturer and you can drip feed it in every month, it's straight into Amazon, that's going to require less cash than buying a product from China, shipping it into Amazon or shipping into a third-party warehouse and then into Amazon, which has got a much longer inventory terms, means you're going to be holding a lot more inventory along the way. So there's three factors that influence your cash flow. One is your gross profit rate, two is the rate of growth, and three is your inventory cycle. Out of these three, the modeling that we've done, it's the gross profit rate which makes the main difference. And within that gross profit rate, the thing that you've got the most influence over is the sale price. In fact, a lot of those other costs, you don't have a lot of influence over. You don't have an influence over the FBA costs, the seller commissions, the freight. You've got a little bit of influence over the cost of the product, but generally that's within a pretty small range in terms of your costs. So the thing that you can have the most influence over is your sale price. And the sale price ends up having a major effect on your gross profit rate. And modeling will show you shortly is that you can go just as fast or just as slow, but having the same profit rate by selling less rather than more. So we've developed a model, cash flow model in Excel that can show how your business is going to grow. So what I would like to do now is just work you through that. Now you're able to download this cash flow model. Just down below there should be a download button there. Download it so you can work through with me on this one. So firstly, I'm just going to show you the various components of the cash flow model, and then we'll start going through how we can adjust it and how it will affect the growth of your business, and so you can see into the future of what your business is going to look like. And that's really important. So the first page, the first tab we've got a series of tabs in Excel. So the first tab we're looking at is just the assumptions tab. The yellow fields are the ones that you can change along the way. So we can change the price, the number of sales per product. We can increase the number of products we're selling each year. It just gives us annual units there. The seasonality, we've kind of built in some functions there. It's got a fourth quarter boost in it, and these increase the seasonality. Just enables us to get a growth rate that's more realistic in there. We can change the prices, the cost of your product, the cost of freight, the FBA cost, the selling commission. We can change how much you have to pay on deposit and timing. We can change the number of days that it's taking to get the product in order. Remember, that's to do with inventory cycle. So the longer a product is, the more the more inventory you're holding, the more cash it's going to require in your business. So we can change those factors around. We can change the TACoS level. So 10% advertising TACoS. you want that at 5 to 10%. We're kind of looking at a long-term average. At times when you're launching a product, it's going to be higher. As you get your PPC optimized, it's going to reduce down. You're looking at that 5 to 10% level. Of course, that's going to affect your cash flow significantly. We're looking at the variable expenses. We put in here 2%, might include Forex fees, might include some extra storage, those type of costs. We've got expenses in here. There's exclude salary, okay? So we're not going to include the owner's salary in here. Amazon businesses don't require a lot of money to run. So we've kept them fairly minimal at this stage. It's important when you're running this Amazon business to keep those costs really at the low level because you want to be making profits. And we can change the tax rate and the amount of you've got to invest. The main factors we're looking at here are in the dashboard. So everything else, all these factors move through to affect the dashboard. The one we're looking at is this figure here, the cash, the minimum in the year. That's the minimum cash balance you're going to have. It's really important because this will go red if your numbers aren't right. And red means you have to put more money back into the business. So you can see here in this model, we've got profit of 410,000. However, there's only 200, the minimum level of cash is 215,000 there. So there was a small graph. Then each of these tabs are really the workings of how things work. So the annual shows just kind of an annual profit and loss for you there. Quarterly, these figures are all done on a quarterly basis, so we've got a profit and loss by quarter, a cash flow forecast, an inventory calculating forecast that feeds back into the cash flow, a balance sheet, so you can just see where your balance sheet's looking. And if you want to muck around with the costs, there's a mechanism by which you can calculate some of these weighted product costs. So if you're selling, you think, I've got a product that's going to sell for a small product that's selling for a low value and a larger product that's selling at a higher value, you can use that to calculate these kind of costs and averages along the way. But what we're looking for is this, to start with, is just this dashboard is what's really going to tell you what's important along the way. So in the first example, we're using a $25 average selling price as the basis for what. So all our products, we're assuming in this instance, are going to be based at around $25. We can see here that the gross profit excluding advertising is about 37%. We've got 10% ATACos in here, so it brings down the gross profit before advertising, after advertising down to 27. We can see here that the business is cash flow positive all the way through. It does have some cash flow issues in year 2 as we obviously launch more products, but we can see here the business starts almost doubling in profit in sales every year, which is massive. We are almost over doubling in profit every year as well. So it's, in terms of a business, it is absolutely flying. I mean, very few businesses would have this level of growth, okay? That's where an Amazon business is so fantastic. And we can see here that, it's profitable, but we're making $200,000 profit, but we can't take out $200,000 because we've got minimum level is $82,000 in the year, okay? So let's see what happens if we just reduce the selling price, okay? So 37%, great gross profit rate. So let's reduce it just slightly to 24, okay? We start going red, okay? In the second year, as we're launching more products, we start going red. So that means we would need to put in $5,000 of our own money into this business because the business hasn't generated it, okay? In further years, it seems to behave itself. Okay, so let's kind of reduce it a little bit more, okay? Let's go down to $22. We can see here in the second year, we're sitting at a 31% gross profit margin. But in the second year, we have to put in an extra $17,000, okay? We've still got problems in year 3. Even though our sales are $800,000 a year, we've still got cash flow problems. So let's put it down to, and let's say everyone else is selling at $19, okay? $19.99, okay? It produces an interesting problem because our gross profit rate here is at 26%. Okay, so as soon as you start going below 30%, it starts causing problems. Okay, in terms of cash flow. And you can see here that as we get bigger, we're going to need more and more money. So at this point, you're going to your spouse, well, actually, we just need an extra $35,000 into this business. We'll draw down on the mortgage or we'll borrow it from friends or wherever. But it'll be okay next year because we'll be doubling in sales. Next year comes along, and this is generally around the July through to August period, June through to July, as you're ramping up for fourth quarter, you say, oh, we're going to be doing really well, but we just need to put in an extra $63,000. Now, it'll get repaid at some point, but not really because we only got $15,000 at the end of the year. So, yeah, it kind of does repay, but we need to drop in an extra $63,000. If you haven't got that $63,000 or that $36,000 to invest, then it means that you won't be able to restock. These sales will not occur. If you don't have that money, then these sales don't occur because you just don't have the stock to be able to sell. And then in year 4, you go, we've got $1 million in sales. But you get round to June, July, August, and you've got to dip into your pocket for another $118,000. So in this model, the bigger the business grows, the more cash it needs, the more cash that the business is not organically growing, that you have to take out of your pocket and put back in. And at this point, we haven't taken anything out in terms of our owners' salaries or drawings. Okay? So the effect is you need to understand that this low gross profit margin is a problem. And if you look at your competitors, they will have to be doing this. If they're selling at, super cheap prices, their business model means that it has to have more and more money going into it. More and more money just to keep it going, let alone taking any more money out. So let's bump that back up to $25 and let's change something else. Let's assume that you've quit your job. Okay, after 1 year, you say, this is fantastic. We've got $500,000 in sales this year. We're going to make $100,000 profit. So let's take out $50,000. Okay? Instant problem. Okay? Because if you you might be able to take it out at the end of the year. We could do that. But it's going to cause problems. If you take it out at the end of the year, this is probably going to cause problems along the way too. So even at a good gross profit margin, we can't afford to really take out any money. What we'll generally see across Amazon businesses, in the first 3 years, you can't afford to take out any money. As soon as you take out money, the business will stop to grow. The cash flow effect will basically reduce your ability to get more stock and be able to sell more. Okay? We might be able to take $200,000 out in year 4. Okay? The business can afford to do it at that point. And generally what we'll see is that businesses will not be able to take money out in the first 3 years. If you do, if you're trying to live off this, you're creating a position where you're always going to be under considerable stresses. This is also a model which assumes everything goes right, that the products don't fail, that the products actually keep on selling, that you're always in stock all the time, that things are happening on a regular basis. With Amazon businesses, things happen along the way that mean that you can't always assume that everything's going to go along perfect. It's not going to. There's going to be issues along the way, of which you need to think about having a buffer in there to ensure that you can ride over those problems. Okay, so let's see what happens if we change some other figures around, okay? Let's assume that we're going to, let's do with the first one. In the first year, and you're only putting in $15,000, you can't get $500,000 in sales because you just don't have enough stock to sell. In your first order, you've got $15,000 to invest. Your first order might be 500 units. 3 months after that, you're ordering 750 units. 3 months after that, you're ordering 1,000 units. So you just don't have enough product to sell to actually get to 500,000. You don't have enough product units to sell to get to 500,000 because you just don't have that many units. So let's see what happens if we bump up, let's say we're going to launch 5 products in the first year. Okay, that's going to cause a problem. Okay, if any of those 5 products are successful, then you're going to have another problem as well, in that you're going to have stock. The one product that's successful, you're going to have stock sitting in other products that are not successful. So the money's been tied up in the products that are not moving, and you need to buy more. So we had a product recently, last year, that went fantastically. It just sold really well. Okay, so we've kind of invested, a reasonable number of units, 1,000 units, cost us $20,000. We invested $20,000. Within a couple of weeks, we realised, after launching, that we had to order more. So we ordered 2,000 units. That 2,000 units came in, and we realised straight away that we had to order 5,000 units. So at this stage, by the time we were in 5,000, we actually haven't got very much money back from our initial investment. The funds coming through because of our launch costs, etc., weren't such that we weren't getting the funds back on those first sales. So it meant that our investment had gone from $20,000 to $100,000 because we had a successful product. It was because it was growing properly. And we had to just keep on ordering more and more stock just to keep in stock. So in the first year, you want to be thinking about just taking things easy. Your object in this first year is really just building up these profits. If your business doesn't make profits, then it cannot grow. Okay? It's not like, in 2-3 years, we'll have to, we can get to the point where we're making profits. It doesn't work that way. Every time you make a loss, that's more money that you need to take out of your pocket and put into the business. You need to be making profits. And you need to be ensuring that this gross profit rate, excluding advertising, is over 30%. Okay, so let's see what happens when we change some of these other numbers around. We can change the unit cost around. Okay, let's say it becomes a little bit more expensive. Okay, that's the effect. We've gone from 1 product to 5 products, and we've got a cash flow problem. Okay. Our freight increases. We've got a cash flow problem. So we need to be thinking about all these things. We increase our advertising. We don't optimize it. Okay. We've got a continual cash flow problem. Even though we've got $1.8 million in sales, we've got a cash flow problem consistently every year because we just haven't optimized that. Okay, you can muck around with these figures. We've got other models that show what's going to happen along the way as we, 52-week model. So we use that for really looking at how much money we're going to need in October. How much money are we going to need in July? So we start that at the beginning of the year. We go, okay, this is what we plan to do for the year. We plan to launch 5 new products. Okay, can we afford to launch 5? Can we afford to launch 10? Can we afford to launch 2 products? Depending on where your position is. So we've got other models around. This model, the purpose of this model is to determine, just in a general sense, okay, what's going to be our overall strategy with this? Because this model is showing you that if you're selling at $19.99 and you've got a 26% gross profit, there is pain involved going through here. The business is going to require more and more money as you keep on growing. The bigger you get, the more money it will require, which is not the position what you want to be in when you can sell at a higher rate. So let's look at another thing here. We'll just leave that one here at $19.99. Okay, we're aiming to get all these sales. Okay, and the cash. We see this cash flow position here, and we look at these profit figure here. So we've got 38,000, 68,000, 143. So let's just say we're not going to grow at the same rate. We're not going to chase those sales. We're going to maintain our profit margins. But we're going to sell 40% less, 60% less. So instead of 10 units a day, we're going to sell 4. Okay? So the business is not growing as quickly, but it's cash flow positive the entire time, and the profit level is almost the same. We're still making the same level of profits, but we're not having to drop that much money in. Okay? So you don't always have to grow super fast. You know, you could pick that niche up that means that you don't grow as fast, you don't make as many sales, you stay off the radar, but by maintaining that profit margin, you enable you to grow organically and still make the same level of profits as someone who is selling at $19.99 and selling far more. Okay? The profits are almost the same, but you're having to push in more cash. So what I'm about to give you now is a roadmap to the growth of your Amazon business over time. It'll help you understand the different stages you're going to go through if you want to accomplish those goals of retiring or getting a big payout at the end or just quitting your job. And there are steps you need to go through and stages of the business that's important, and different things along the way that you need to concentrate on. So what I'm about to go through is that roadmap of how that's going to accomplish. So the first concept that we need to understand, and it's a business concept, it's a concept of working capital. So working capital in your business, for an Amazon business, is pretty simple because it's just cash and inventory. Now, the modeling that we've done and the experience we've had in having our own 7-figure business is that if you're going to make $100,000 profit in your business, then you need to have $100,000 worth of inventory. Otherwise, you just don't have enough inventory to sell. And likewise, if you're going to make $300,000 profit a year, then you need to have $300,000 worth of inventory at cost. Okay, so that kind of works through the entire way until you get to about $1 million in sales, and at that point the margins kind of change a little bit, but it will depend on your product and how quickly it's selling and how many winners and losers you have along the way. But that's generally the model we're seeing. So in terms of growth and where you expect to be, it's defined by how much stock you've got. So in the first year, you can't make $1 million in sales because you just don't have enough to sell. You just don't have enough product. You've only bought 500 units, maybe 1,000 as your first unit. You just don't have enough product to make those sales without investing an enormous amount of money into it. And what we're talking about today was a lot of organic growth. That's how we're aiming to grow this business rather than dumping a whole bunch of money into the business. So working capital is an important thing to realize. And in the initial stages of your business, it's not about making the most sales, it's about making the most profit, because that feeds into your working capital. So you can only grow your working capital, that level of stock, by 2 ways. One, you can put more money into the business, capital injection out of your own pocket into the business, or you can grow it organically, using those profits you've made in past years to buy more and more inventory. So in terms of if we broke down the business into a 4-year stage, and the cash flow model kind of shows through that stage of what you need to do to build it up organically. So the first stage we call is just the start phase. This is your first year of operation. What you're doing in this year is you've got one product. Your object is to sell that product, learn how to sell, learn how to use advertising. But the object in this first year is we're really just kind of building up, getting that inventory stable on the first product. So it might be that inventory is stable at 1,000 units every quarter or 2,000 units every quarter. But in the first instance, you've only bought 500 units. So the next order needs to come through. It needs to be 750 units. The next order after that, 1,000 units. The next order after that, 1,500 units. So it's going to take you time to build up that level. Your cash flow means that you can't actually grow that much faster. So in the first year, we're aiming to keep everything really simple. Very little in the way of costs. We're aiming object is really just to build up those profits. So we don't want to be spending money on fancy things. At this stage, we don't actually need accounting software in place because you can just keep tabs of what profits you've got in an Excel spreadsheet. You've got one product. It's fairly simple. So what we're doing is keeping all the costs really low as we can, because we want to be building up that profit. In the second year, what we're looking at doing is what we call the establishing base phase. We're building up that working capital base before we can grow quickly. So in the establishing base phase, what we're doing is we're launching a second product. Let's prove that the first product wasn't just a fluke, and we have a system for doing that. So we're launching the second product. We've got the first product stable, okay, in terms of its inventory, and we're launching a second product. Okay, and then we're keeping that second product stable as well as the first product in terms of its inventory level, so we're not running out. And we then might introduce a third product. So this is in this second year of operation. Again, we're not going for massive levels of sales. What we're doing is building up that profit levels. So we want to, in this second stage, we've probably got sales between $100,000 to $400,000, $500,000 in sales. We've probably got up to 5 products at this point. It's even less, 3 products. And that's all we're aiming to do. We're aiming to earn between probably $75,000 to $100,000 in profit. We're aiming to build that working capital base from up to around $100,000 in inventory at cost. Then we can go to the third phase. So this is your third year of operation. You've established your first product. You've said, yes, that works. You've then launched a few more products. They're going well as well. The inventory's stable. You're not running out of stock. You haven't got cash flow issues. And then from there, you're going into the third phase. One of the things to remember, I suppose, at some point, you're going to get products that don't work, okay? They might fail for a particular reason. At that point, you may have to actually go backwards a bit. Just, okay, slow things down, get back on track, recover from those losses before you go again. If you go again too quickly, it can mean that you're going to end up with cash flow issues. So it's a matter of building up that cash flow. So the third year is about this growth phase. You've built up a level of cash flow. You know what to do. You've got this working capital there. You've got all your products ready to go, and you can start to launch products 6 through to 15. At this stage, you're going through high growth. You need to have some inventory systems in place. You're still doing this part-time, by the way. This is not a business that requires you doing this full-time at this stage. And we're moving up to about this $1 million in sales point. Once we've gone through that fast growth phase, in year 3, we've kind of got our sales to $1 million a year. At that point, what we've seen is generally it starts to become a little tricky to run this business on a part-time basis. So this is the point you can go, okay, I can quit my job, I can work on this full-time. The business at this point, it's got $1 million plus in sales, can generally afford for you to take a salary. And at that point, we see an inflection point in Amazon businesses where the cash generated by the business is the owners can afford to take some money out and have enough to continually grow the business. Because at this stage, they've got 15 products funding the next one that comes along. So they can grow much faster along the way. So the ability to grow and get to this $1 million sales, or the lifestyle that you want, or the profit level you want, is dependent on the cash flow. That growth that you're going to go through will be dependent on how well this business is able to generate cash flow. You can't just go from $0 to $200,000 in sales a month because you just don't have enough stock to sell. So what to do now? We understand now that cash flow is such an important factor in your success as an Amazon seller. So what you should do now is make sure you've downloaded that spreadsheet and muck around with it. Change the numbers around. See what happens if you pay a bit more or pay a bit less or charge more or charge less or grow at different rates. Understand how that fits in so you can have a better understanding for how your business is going to work in the future. The cash flow model effectively gives you the ability to look into the future, and the decisions you make now as to pricing, etc., will have a significant impact on your ability to be a successful Amazon seller. My name's Arnie Shields. Thank you very much for listening.